The coin purse landed on the turnip crate with a solid thunk that made Damien Everett look up from wiping mud off his boots. "I need a husband for 6 days," the orc woman said, her green fingers still resting on the leather pouch. "You will be paid 30 silver marks. Half now, half when we return." Damien blinked at her. She stood beside the vegetable wagon with her shoulders squared, wearing a practical work dress the color of dried wheat. Her skin was the deep green of summer leaves, and 2 small tusks curved up from her lower jaw. Her dark hair was pulled back in a thick braid that hung past her shoulders. She was maybe a hand shorter than him, with a lean build that spoke of farm work and good meals. "A husband," he repeated. "A pretend husband." Her amber eyes held his without wavering. "My family has their autumn gathering in 6 days. They have arranged a match for me. If I arrive already married, especially to a human, they will abandon the plan." Damien set down the brush he had been using on his boots. The autumn air was cool against his neck. He had been working the Morrison farm for 3 months now, hired on for the harvest season. The work was honest, but the pay was thin. 30 silver marks was more than he would earn in 2 months of dawn to dusk labor. "Why me?" he asked. "You are quiet. You do not drink in town or start fights." "You work hard." She tilted her head slightly. "And you have kind eyes. My mother will notice that." He almost smiled at the practicality of it. "Where is this gathering?" 3 days north. "My family has an orchard and grain farm near the Whisperwood border. We stay 6 days, then return." "You pretend to be my husband. You eat their food, sleep in a separate room, and when we return you take your silver and we part ways." Damien looked down at the coin purse. 15 silver marks just sitting there. He thought about the hole in his only other pair of boots. He thought about the winter coming and how hired hands were always the first let go when the cold arrived. "What is your name?" he asked. "Eira Wulfstone. Damien Everett." He picked up the coin purse and felt its weight. "When do we leave?" Something that might have been relief crossed her face. "Tomorrow at dawn. Bring whatever you own. We will need to build a story together before we arrive." That night, Eira came to the barn where Damien slept in the loft above the horses. She carried a lantern and a bundle wrapped in cloth. He had been lying on his bedroll, staring at the rafters and wondering what he had agreed to. "We need to talk," she said, climbing the ladder with easy grace. "My family will ask questions. We need answers that match." Damien sat up and made room for her on the wooden floor. She set the lantern between them and unwrapped the bundle. Inside was bread, cheese, and 2 apples. "You have not eaten," she said. "It was not a question. Ate earlier." "That was a small bowl of stew at midday. I watched." She pushed half the food toward him. "Eat." "You cannot look half-starved when you meet my family. They will think I do not feed you." He took the bread. It was still warm. Eira pulled a small notebook from her pocket and opened it to a page covered in neat handwriting. "We met 8 months ago. You were passing through on your way south from the lumber camps. I was selling vegetables at the market in Thornhaven." "Thornhaven. That is the town 3 days west." "Yes, you bought carrots from me. We talked. You came back the next week." She glanced up at him. "Do you remember conversations, or do I need to write this down for you?" "I remember." "Good. You came back for 3 weeks. On the 4th week you asked if you could walk me home. I said yes. We courted for 5 months before you asked me to marry you." Damien chewed the bread slowly. "Where did I ask you?" Eira paused. "What? Where did I propose? Your family will want to know." She looked at him with something like surprise. "You are right. They will ask." She tapped her pen against the notebook. "By the river. There is a bend in the Thornhaven River where willows grow. You asked me there at sunset. Did I have a ring? No. You were worried about that, but I told you I did not need one." Her voice had softened slightly. I told you I just needed you." The words hung in the air between them. Damien took another bite of bread to have something to do. "We married quietly," Eira continued. "Just a village elder and 2 witnesses. I have not told my family yet because I knew they would be upset, about the match they arranged, about you being human." "Will they be upset?" "Yes," she met his eyes, "but they will be polite. Orcs value hospitality. They will feed you and house you and treat you with courtesy. But they will watch you, they will test you, they will want to see if you are worthy." "How do I prove I am worthy?" "Work hard, be respectful, do not shy away from our customs." She closed the notebook. "And act like you love me." Damien looked at her in the lantern light. Her green skin seemed to glow warm gold. Her tusks caught the shadows. She was pretty, he realized. Not in the way the human girls in town were pretty, but in her own way, strong and sure. "How should I act?" he asked. Eira's confidence flickered. "I do not know. I have never been married. I have never even courted anyone, not really. The boys in my village growing up were all like brothers to me. But you must have seen your parents together, other married people." "Yes," she frowned, thinking. "They touch small things. Hands on shoulders, standing close. My father always pulls out my mother's chair at dinner. I can do those things. And they look at each other like they are sharing a secret, even across a crowded room." Damien nodded slowly. "We should practice." Eira's eyes widened. "Practice. So it looks natural. If we are stiff and awkward, they will know something is wrong." He stood and offered her his hand. "Stand up." She took his hand and rose. They stood facing each other in the small loft space. The horses nickered softly below them. "Put your hand here," Damien said, guiding her palm to his shoulder. He rested his hand lightly on her waist. The fabric of her dress was warm under his fingers. "This is how people stand when they are comfortable together." Eira was very still. "This feels strange." "It will feel less strange if we practice." He could feel the tension in her frame. "Breathe. I am not going to hurt you." She took a breath and some of the tightness left her shoulders. "Sorry, I am not used to being touched. We can stop if you want." "No." Her grip on his shoulder tightened slightly. "No, we need to do this right. My grandmother will notice if we flinch away from each other." They stood like that for a long moment. Slowly, Eira's breathing evened out. Damien could feel the warmth of her through her dress. She smelled like hay and wood smoke and something sweet he could not name. "Better?" he asked. "Better." She looked up at him. They were close enough that he could see flecks of gold in her amber eyes. "What else? You said married people look at each other. Look at me like you love me." Eira bit her lip, which made her tusks press into her skin. Then she let her expression soften. Her eyes grew warmer. A small smile tugged at her mouth. Damien felt something shift in his chest. "That is good," he said quietly. "Your turn." He tried to let his face relax. Tried to look at her the way a man might look at a woman he had chosen to spend his life with. He thought about the kindness she had shown, bringing him food, the straightforward honesty of her offer, the determination in the set of her jaw. "Yes," Eira whispered. "Like that." They stood together in the golden lantern light, practicing being in love. They left before dawn the next morning. Eira had a sturdy wagon pulled by a patient draft horse named Barley. Damien threw his single bag into the back and climbed up beside her on the bench seat. The road north was rutted from autumn rains. They drove in silence for the first hour, watching the sun rise over fields ready for harvest. The air smelled of ripe grain and turning leaves. "Tell me about your family," Damien said finally, "so I know what to expect." Eira kept her eyes on the road. "My mother is Mara. She is fierce and practical. She will want to know that you can provide for me. My father is Grom. He is gentler. He likes to laugh. He will want to know that you make me happy." "Brothers or sisters?" one younger brother Torin. "He is 17 and thinks he knows everything." "2 older sisters, both married. Kesta is 26. She has 3 children and is always tired. Ryla is 24. She married last year and is expecting her first baby. And the man they want you to marry, Eira's hands tightened on the reins. His name is Ulrich Stonefist. He is a good man from what I hear. Strong, honorable, a skilled craftsman. Our families have known each other for years. It makes sense on paper. But you do not want to marry him. I do not want to marry anyone I did not choose myself. Her voice was sharp with frustration. I am 22 years old. I have my own life, my own work. I sell vegetables at 3 different markets. I have saved money. I have plans. And then my mother sends a letter saying she has found me a perfect match. Come home for the gathering so we can announce the engagement. As if I am a prize pig to be traded. Damien watched her profile. The anger in her voice was real and deep. So you hired me, he said. So I hired you. She glanced at him. Does that bother you, being hired? No, it is honest work, more honest than some I have done. What kind of work have you done? Logging, farming. Worked on a fishing boat for a season, spent a winter as a stable hand. I go where the work is. No family of your own. Not anymore. Damien looked out at the passing fields. My parents died of fever when I was 14, no siblings. I have been on my own since then. Eira was quiet for a moment. I am sorry. It was a long time ago, still. That must have been hard, he shrugged. I survived. They rode in silence for a while. The road wound through farmland, past orchards heavy with apples and fields dotted with pumpkins. They passed other travelers, farmers hauling goods to market, a merchant's wagon going south. Around midday, Eira pulled the wagon off the road near a stream. They ate bread and dried meat in the shade of an oak tree while Barley drank from the water. Can I ask you something? Eira said, breaking a piece of bread in half. Yes. Why did you say yes so quickly? You did not even try to bargain for more money. You just agreed. Damien thought about how to answer. I needed the work, and you seemed desperate enough to be honest. That is all. That is all. He met her eyes. Should there be more? Eira looked away. No, I suppose not. This is a business arrangement. I should not expect more. But something in her voice made him think she had hoped for a different answer. They reached the first way station by evening. It was a simple traveler's rest, a barn with sleeping lofts and a common room where the keeper's wife served stew and bread. Damien paid for their meal and lodging, which made Eira raise her eyebrows. You do not need to do that. I have money. A husband would pay, he said quietly. People are watching. She glanced around. He was right. The other travelers were looking at them with barely concealed curiosity. An orc woman and a human man, traveling together. Married, from the way he had asked for one room before Eira could speak. The keeper's wife showed them to a small loft space with 2 narrow beds. She gave Damien a long look but said nothing. When they were alone, Eira sat on one of the beds and pulled off her boots. You think quickly. I would have asked for separate rooms. Then people would talk. Word travels. What if someone at this way station knows someone in your village? You are right. She rubbed her feet and winced. I did not think of that. Damien set his bag down and stretched. The long day of travel had left him stiff. We should work on our story more. What else will they ask? They spent the evening sitting on their separate beds, building the details of their false life together. Eira asked him questions her family might ask. What was his favorite food? How did he take his tea? What did he do when he was upset? Damien answered honestly because it was easier than making up lies. What about me? Eira asked. What should I say if they ask about you? Say I am quiet. Say I work hard and do not complain. Say I make you laugh when you least expect it. Do you? I do not know. I have not tried yet. Eira smiled at that, small and real. I will warn you now. My grandmother will ask how we are in bed. Damien felt heat rise in his face. She will not. She will. She is old and has no shame. She asks all my sisters about their marriage beds, says she wants to make sure they are satisfied. What should we say? Eira's cheeks had darkened to a deeper green. Say it is good, say it is private, say you will not discuss it. She will respect that more than details. All right. They lay down in their separate beds. The loft was dark except for the moonlight through the window. Damien could hear Eira breathing across the small space. "Damien," she said softly. "Yes, thank you for doing this. You are paying me." "Still, thank you." He did not answer, just listened to her breathing slow into sleep. The second day of travel took them into hillier country. Apple orchards covered the slopes, and the air smelled of fruit and fallen leaves. They passed through a small village at midday where Eira stopped to water barley and buy fresh bread from a baker she knew. The baker was human, an older woman with flour in her hair. She smiled at Eira like an old friend, then noticed Damien sitting in the wagon. "Who is this?" the baker asked. Eira's hand found Damien's as he stood beside her. Her fingers were warm and slightly rough from work. "This is my husband Damien. Damien, this is Marta. She buys apples from my family's orchard." Marta's eyes went wide. "Husband, when did this happen?" "2 months ago. We kept it quiet." Eira squeezed Damien's hand. "We are heading to my family's gathering now to tell them." "Oh, they will have words about that," Marta said, but she was smiling. "But I am happy for you, dear. He looks like a steady one." "He is," Eira said, and glanced up at Damien with that soft look they had practiced. "Very steady." Damien put his arm around her waist, feeling the movement was right. "She makes it easy." Marta sold them 2 loaves of bread and sent them off with her blessing. As they drove away, Eira kept hold of Damien's hand. "That was good," she said. "Natural." "Yes." He looked down at their joined hands. Her palm fit easily against his. "Should we keep practicing?" "Yes." But she did not let go. They held hands for the next hour of driving. It felt strange at first, then less strange. Damien found himself noticing details. The calluses on her fingers from garden work, the strength in her grip, the way she rubbed her thumb across his knuckles absently as she watched the road. "Tell me something true," Eira said suddenly. "What?" "Something true about you. Something you have not told me yet. All we talk about is the story we are building. I want to know something real." Damien thought for a moment. "I like mornings best, before anyone else is awake, when the world is still quiet." Eira nodded slowly. "I like thunderstorms. The sound of rain on the roof, the way the air smells after." "What else?" "I am afraid of deep water. I never learned to swim properly. It terrifies me. I can swim. I could teach you, maybe," she smiled. "After this is over." "After this is over," he agreed, though something in his chest felt heavy at the words. They camped that night under the stars. Eira had blankets and supplies in the wagon. They built a small fire and cooked salt pork and potatoes in a pan. The night was cool and clear. The moon was nearly full. After they ate, Eira pulled out her notebook again. "We should go over the details one more time. Tomorrow we arrive." They ran through their story when they met, how they fell in love, what their wedding was like, but Damien found his attention drifting. Eira's face in the firelight. The way she chewed her lip when she concentrated. The glint of her tusks when she smiled at something he said. "You are not listening," she said. "Sorry. Are you nervous? About tomorrow?" "A little. Me too." She closed the notebook. "What if they see through it? What if I cannot lie to them convincingly?" "You will." He poked at the fire with a stick. "You are stronger than you think." "How do you know?" "You walked up to a stranger and asked him to pretend to be your husband. That takes courage." Eira laughed softly. "Or desperation." "Courage," Damien said firmly. She looked at him across the fire. "You are a good man, Damien Everett. I am glad I asked you." "I am glad you asked me too." They held each other's gaze for a long moment. Then Eira stood and brushed off her skirt. "We should sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day." They laid out their bedrolls on opposite sides of the fire. Damien lay on his back and watched the stars wheel overhead. He could hear Eira shifting in her blankets. "Damien," she whispered. "Yes. Will you hold my hand? Just for a minute. I am nervous and it helps." He reached across the space between them. Her hand found his in the darkness. They lay like that, connected by their joined hands until they both fell asleep. They saw the Wulfstone farm in the late afternoon of the third day. It spread across a river valley, with terraced grain fields climbing the hillsides and a sprawling apple orchard covering the gentler slopes. The farmhouse was large and built of stone and timber, with smoke rising from multiple chimneys. Several smaller buildings clustered nearby, barns and storehouses and what looked like a workshop. Eira pulled the wagon to a stop at the crest of the hill overlooking the valley. "That is home," she said quietly. Damien could hear the tension in her voice. He reached over and took her hand. "We can do this, can we?" "Yes." He squeezed her fingers. "Trust me." She took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. "All right, let us go meet my family." They drove down the winding road into the valley. As they approached the farmhouse, people emerged from the buildings. Damien counted at least a dozen orcs, all with the same green skin as Eira, though the shades varied from deep forest green to lighter sage. They ranged in age from small children to elderly elders. A tall orc woman with Eira's features stepped forward. This had to be her mother. "Eira, you are finally here. We have been watching for you all afternoon." Eira climbed down from the wagon. "Hello, Mother." Mara pulled her daughter into a tight embrace, then held her at arm's length. Her eyes went to Damien, who had stepped down from the wagon and stood quietly beside it. "And who is this?" Mara's voice was carefully neutral. Eira reached for Damien's hand. He took it, feeling all the eyes on them. "Mother, father, everyone, this is Damien Everett, my husband." The silence that followed was profound. Damien watched Mara's face shift through several emotions: shock, confusion, anger, and finally a forced calm. "Your husband," Mara repeated. "Yes, we married 2 months ago. I wanted to tell you in person." A broad-shouldered orc man with graying hair stepped forward. "This must be Grom, Eira's father." He studied Damien with sharp eyes. "You married a human." "I married the man I love," Eira said, and her voice was steady. Damien felt her grip tighten on his hand. He stepped slightly closer to her, a small gesture of support. Grom looked between them. Then slowly he smiled. "Well, this is unexpected." He moved forward and offered Damien his hand. "Welcome to our family, Damien Everett." Damien shook his hand. Grom's grip was strong but not crushing. "Thank you, sir. I am honored." Mara still looked like she had been struck by lightning. "We should discuss this inside. All of you, give them space. There will be time for introductions at dinner." The gathered family dispersed, though Damien could feel their curious stares. A young orc man who must be Tauren lingered, looking at Damien with open fascination. "Inside," Mara said firmly. "Now." They followed her into the farmhouse. The interior was warm and welcoming, with a large central room dominated by a massive wooden table. Herbs hung from the rafters. The smell of baking bread filled the air. An elderly orc woman sat in a rocking chair by the fire. Her skin was weathered and her hair was white, but her eyes were bright and sharp. She looked up as they entered. "Grandmother," Eira said, her voice suddenly small. The old woman looked at Damien for a long moment. Then she smiled. "Come here, child. Let me meet this husband of yours." Damien approached carefully. Eira's grandmother reached out and took his hand in both of hers. Her skin was papery, but her grip was firm. "What is your name, boy?" "Damien Everett, madam." "You may call me Gran. Everyone does." She turned his hand over, examining it. Working hands, good. Eira needs a man who knows hard work. She looked up at his face. Kind eyes, also good. She needs kindness. I try, madam. Gran, she corrected. Sit, all of you, let us talk. They sat around the table. Mara brought tea, her movements sharp with barely controlled emotion. Gram sat beside his wife, his hand on her arm, calming. Tell us how this happened, Mara said. All of it. Eira and Damien told the story they had practiced. Meeting at the market, courtship, the proposal by the river, the quiet wedding. As they talked, Damien found himself adding small details they had not rehearsed. The way Eira laughed at something he said their first meeting. How nervous he was asking her to walk with him. The relief when she said yes to his proposal. Eira glanced at him when he said these things, surprise in her eyes, but she did not contradict him. And you did not think to tell us, Mara demanded when they finished. You got married without your family present. I knew about the arrangement with Ulrich, Eira said quietly. I knew you would be upset that I chose someone else. Someone human. I was afraid. Afraid of us. Gram looked hurt, afraid of disappointing you. Gran made a soft sound. Foolish child, as if we would not want your happiness. Would you have approved? Eira asked. Honestly. Mara and Gram exchanged a long look. Finally, Mara sighed. I do not know. I would have wanted to meet him first. I would have had concerns, but I would have wanted your happiness above all. Well, you can meet him now, Eira said. He is here. Ask him anything you want. Mara turned her attention to Damien. What do you do for work? Hired farm work, madam. Harvest seasons mostly. Some winter stable work. I go where the work is. So you are a drifter. I am a man who works. Can you provide for my daughter? I will always make sure she has what she needs. That is not an answer. Mother, Eira said sharply, but Damien squeezed her hand under the table. You are right, he said to Mara. It is not. The truth is I am not rich, I likely never will be, but I work hard and I am honest and I will spend every day of my life making sure Eira is cared for. That is all I can promise. Mara studied him for a long moment, then some of the hardness left her face. That is a better answer, Gram leaned forward. Do you make my daughter happy? Damien looked at Eira. She was watching him with those amber eyes and something in his chest tightened. I try. That is the most important thing to me. Does he make you happy? Gram asked Eira. Yes, Eira said softly. He does. Gran clapped her hands once. Then it is settled. They are married. We welcome him. Now someone show them to a room so they can rest before dinner. They have been traveling for days. Mara stood, still looking uncertain, but she nodded. Come, I will show you to Eira's old room. They followed her up a narrow staircase to the second floor. Eira's room was small but comfortable, with a window overlooking the orchard and a bed covered in a faded quilt. Dinner is at sunset, Mara said. The whole family will be there. Everyone will want to meet Damien. She paused at the door. Eira, can I speak with you alone for a moment? Damien stepped back. I will unpack. He watched them go into the hallway. He could hear their voices, low and intense, but could not make out the words. He set his bag on the floor and looked around the room. It felt strange being here in the space where Eira had grown up. He could see traces of her younger self. A shelf of carved wooden animals, a dried flower pressed under glass, a drawing of the orchard tacked to the wall. The door opened and Eira slipped back in. Her eyes were red. Are you all right? Damien asked. My mother is upset. She says I should have told her. She says she had to apologize to Ulrich's family because I did not bother to decline the arrangement properly. Eira sat on the bed and put her face in her hands. This is a disaster. Damien sat beside her. It is not a disaster. She is upset now, but she will calm down. She wants your happiness. She said so. She wanted me to marry an orc, someone from a good family, not a human drifter. The words stung, though Damien knew she did not mean them cruelly. Is that what you think of me? No. Eira looked up quickly. No, I am sorry. I did not mean it like that. I am just upset. I know. He put his hand on her shoulder. Breathe. We knew this would be hard, but we are doing well. Your father likes me. Your grandmother likes me. Your mother will come around. What if she does not? Then she does not. But you will still get what you want. The arranged marriage is over. Ulrich will move on. You will be free. Eira leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. Why are you so calm about all of this? Someone has to be. She laughed a little wetly. Thank you for being here. I could not do this without you. Damien put his arm around her. It felt natural now, after days of practicing. You could, but I am glad you do not have to. They sat like that until the light through the window turned gold with sunset. Then they washed their faces and went downstairs to face the family. Dinner was chaos. The long table was packed with Eira's extended family. Damien was introduced to so many people he quickly lost track of names. Eira's sisters, Kesta and Ryla, both studied him with open curiosity. Kesta's 3 children, all under age 5, ran wild around the table. Ryla's husband, a serious orc man named Berk, asked Damien careful questions about his work experience. Torin, Eira's younger brother, peppered Damien with questions about human towns and customs. He seemed fascinated rather than hostile. Is it true humans do not eat their meat raw? Torin asked. Some do, but mostly we cook it. Why, is your blood too weak to handle it, Torin? Mara said sharply, but Damien smiled. Maybe, or maybe we just like the taste of cooked meat better. The meal was enormous. Roasted pork and lamb, potatoes and carrots, 3 kinds of bread, apple tart and berry pie. Everyone ate with enthusiasm and talked over each other. Damien found himself relaxing into the noise and warmth. Grom sat at the head of the table with Mara beside him. Gran sat on his other side. She watched Damien throughout the meal with those sharp eyes, but she smiled when she caught him looking. Damien, Grom called down the table. Eira says you have worked logging camps. Do you know timber? Some. I can tell a good tree from a bad one. I can fell and limb. We need to clear some deadwood from the upper orchard before winter. Would you be willing to help while you are here, of course? You do not need to work, Eira said quickly. You are a guest. A guest who is family, Grom corrected, and family helps with the work. If he is willing. I am willing, Damien said. Grom nodded with satisfaction. Good. We start at dawn. After dinner, the younger children were put to bed and the adults moved to the large sitting room. Someone produced a fiddle and someone else a drum. Music started, lively and rhythmic. Ryla and Berk danced, her pregnant belly making her movements careful but joyful. Eira sat beside Damien on a bench against the wall. Her hand found his. You are doing well, she whispered. My father already likes you. He is easy to like. And Torin is fascinated by you. He has never really talked to a human before. He is a good kid. What about my mother? Damien glanced across the room. Mara sat with Gran, their heads bent close in conversation. Both were watching him and Eira. She is coming around. Give her time. The music shifted to something slower. Grom stood and offered his hand to Mara. She smiled and took it, and they moved into a dance together. Damien watched the easy way they moved with each other, the comfort of decades together. You dance? Eira asked. Not well. Neither do I. We can be terrible together. She stood and pulled him to his feet. They joined the other dancers. Eira had not been lying. She was not a graceful dancer. She stepped on his foot twice and apologized profusely. But she was laughing, her face bright with joy, and Damien found himself laughing too. You are terrible at this, he said. I warned you. I thought you were being modest. I never learned properly. I always preferred being outside to dancing lessons. Damien spun her, which made her yelp and grab onto him. They nearly fell. We are going to hurt someone, he said. Probably ourselves. But they kept dancing. Other couples gave them a wide berth. Torin watched them and grinned. Even Mara smiled a little when the music finally ended. They were both breathless. Eira's braid had come loose and her face was flushed darker green. She looked beautiful. "Come outside," she said. "I need air." They slipped out through the back door into the cool night. The orchard spread before them, silvered by moonlight. Eira led him down a path between the trees until the sounds of the house faded behind them. "Thank you," she said, "for dancing with me. For all of it, you have been perfect." "I have not been perfect. I stepped on your toes. You know what I mean." She turned to face him. "My family likes you. Even my mother is softening. This is working." "Yes." Damien looked up at the apple-heavy branches above them. "It is working." "You sound sad." "Not sad, just thinking." "About what?" He looked at her. "About how good you are at pretending. You almost had me convinced tonight." Eira's face shifted, something vulnerable crossing it. "Who says I was pretending?" The words hung between them. Damien's heart beat faster. "Eira, I should not have said that." She turned away quickly. "Forget I said anything. We have a plan. We should stick to it." "Eira," he caught her hand. "Look at me." She turned back slowly. In the moonlight her eyes shone. "I am not pretending either," Damien said quietly. "Not anymore." "What?" "The last few days, getting to know you, being with you, I am not pretending." He stepped closer. "I do not know when it happened, but somewhere between the turnip wagon and here it stopped being an act." Eira's breath caught. "Damien, we cannot. This is just for 6 days. You are leaving after. That was the deal. I know. I am just telling you the truth." He raised his hand and gently touched her cheek. "You deserve to know the truth." She closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. "This is complicated." "Yes. We should not do this." "No. But I want to." "Me too." Eira opened her eyes. "Kiss me, just once, so I know it is real." Damien leaned down and kissed her. Her lips were warm and soft, her tusks pressed lightly against his face. She made a small sound and her hands came up to grip his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened. Damien felt like he was falling, like the world had tilted beneath him. Eira tasted like apples and honey wine. Her body was warm against his. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "That was real," Eira whispered. "Yes." "What are we going to do?" "I do not know." They stood together in the orchard, holding each other, with no answers and too many questions. The next morning, Damien woke to find the other side of the bed empty. They had slept in Eira's narrow childhood bed the night before, lying awkwardly side by side, not touching but acutely aware of each other. At some point, he had fallen asleep. Now morning light streamed through the window. He dressed quickly and went downstairs. Grom was in the kitchen, drinking tea and eating bread with jam. "Good, you are awake," Grom said. "Ready to work?" "Yes, sir." "Just Grom, save the sir for people who deserve it." He handed Damien a thick slice of bread. "Eat, then we go." They walked up into the orchard as the sun rose. The morning air was crisp and smelled of ripe apples. Grom carried an axe over his shoulder. He showed Damien the dead and dying trees that needed to come down before winter storms knocked them over. "Eira tells me you met at market," Grom said as they worked, "that you bought carrots from her." "Yes." "What made you come back the second week?" Damien sank his axe into a dead trunk. "She was kind and funny, and she looked me in the eye when she talked to me. Most people do not." Grom nodded slowly. "Because you are a drifter, people do not trust drifters." "No." "Do they have reason not to trust you?" "No. I work hard. I keep my word. I do not steal or cheat." Damien pulled the axe free. "But people see what they expect to see. They see a man with no family and no home and they think he must be running from something." Are you running from something? No, I am running towards something, I just have not found it yet. Grom considered this. Have you found it now? With Eira, Damien met his eyes. I think so, but it is complicated. Love is always complicated. Grom swung his axe, taking down a branch with one clean stroke. My wife was promised to someone else when I met her. Did Eira tell you that? No. Her family had arranged a match. A good match with a wealthy family, but Mara did not want it. She wanted to choose for herself. Grom smiled at the memory. She chose me. A poor farmer's son with nothing to offer but hard work and an honest heart. Her family was furious, but she did not care. She knew what she wanted. How did you convince her family to accept you? I did not at first, but I showed up every day, I worked hard. I treated Mara with respect and love. Eventually they saw that I was good for her, that I made her happy. That was enough. Damien thought about that as they worked. The sun climbed higher. Sweat soaked his shirt, but the physical labor felt good, clean, and simple. Around midday, Torin appeared with a basket of food and a jug of water. Mother sent lunch, he said. She says you have been working long enough. They sat in the shade and ate cold chicken and bread. Torin peppered Damien with more questions. What were human cities like? Had he ever seen the ocean? Was it true humans kept cats in their houses on purpose? Yes to the ocean, Damien said. Worked on a fishing boat for a season, remember, and yes to the cats. They catch mice. But they do not even taste good, Torin said, baffled. Grom laughed. Humans do not eat their cats, boy. Why not? They are pets, companions. Torin shook his head. Humans are very confusing. After lunch, Grom sent Torin back and they kept working. They felled 5 dead trees and limbed them for firewood. Grom worked alongside Damien, matching him stroke for stroke. The man was easily 20 years older, but he did not slow or complain. You are a good worker, Grom said as they hauled cut wood down the hill. Eira chose well. Thank you. And you are good to her. I can see it in the way you look at her, the way you stand close, the way your hand finds hers without thinking. Grom set down his load of wood. That is not something you can fake. Damien's chest tightened. No, it is not. Do you love my daughter, Damien? The question hung in the air. Damien thought about lying, about sticking to the plan, but Grom's eyes were kind and honest, and he deserved honesty in return. Yes, Damien said quietly, I do. Grom nodded as if he had expected that answer. Does she know? I think so. We talked last night. And what will you do about it? I do not know. This was not supposed to happen. We had an arrangement. Just pretend for 6 days, then go our separate ways. Plans change. She paid me to be here. How do I tell her I want to stay? She will think I am just trying to get more money. Grom laughed, a deep rumbling sound. Boy, if you think my daughter would ever question your motives, you do not know her well enough yet. She is sharp as a blade. She knows what is real and what is not. Then what do I do? Tell her the truth. Tell her you want to stay. Tell her you love her. Let her decide what happens next. Grom clapped him on the shoulder. Now come, we should wash up before dinner. Mara hates when I track dirt into her clean house. That evening the house was full again. More family had arrived for the gathering. Eira's aunts and uncles, cousins of various ages. The noise level was tremendous. Damien found himself swept up in introductions and conversations, trying to remember names and faces. Eira stayed close to his side. She held his hand and smiled when people asked about their courtship. She told the story they had practiced, but her eyes kept finding his and he could see the truth in them. After dinner, Gran called Eira and Damien over to her chair by the fire. Sit, she commanded. Both of you. They sat on the floor at her feet like children. Gran looked down at them with those sharp eyes. You are terrible liars, she said. Eira's face went pale. What? You heard me. You are terrible at lying. You hold hands like you are afraid to let go. You look at each other when you think no one is watching. You sleep in the same bed, but you both have shadows under your eyes like you did not sleep at all. Gran leaned forward. That is not how married people act. That is how people in love who are afraid to admit it act. Damien opened his mouth, but Gran held up her hand. I am not finished. I know why you brought him, Eira. You wanted to get out of the arrangement with Ulrich. You hired this boy to pretend to be your husband so your mother would drop the matter. Gran's voice was not unkind. Did you really think you could fool me? Eira's eyes filled with tears. Gran, hush. I said I am not finished. Gran reached down and took both their hands, joining them together. Here is what I see. I see two young people who made a foolish plan. I see them realizing their plan has backfired because they have fallen in love for real. I see them confused and scared and not knowing what to do next. She squeezed their hands. Am I wrong? No, Eira whispered. No, Damien agreed. Gran sat back with satisfaction. Good, at least you are honest about that. Are you going to tell my mother? Eira asked. Why would I do that? She is happy thinking you are married. Your father likes this boy. Even Mara is coming around. Why ruin it? Because it is a lie. Is it? Gran looked at Damien. Do you love my granddaughter? Yes. Do you want to marry her for real? Yes. Gran turned to Eira. Do you love him? Eira looked at Damien. Her amber eyes were bright with unshed tears. Yes, I do. Then where is the lie? Gran waved her hand. You will need to actually get married, of course, but that is easy enough. Invite the family, have a proper ceremony, make it real. She smiled. Problem solved. Damien felt like his heart might burst from his chest. It is not that simple. Why not? Because I have nothing to offer her. I am a hired hand. I have no home, no land, no prospects. Eira deserves better. Let Eira decide what she deserves, Gran said tartly. Girl, do you want him or not? Eira turned to Damien. You really want to marry me? For real, more than anything. Even though I tricked you, even though I paid you to lie, even though. He touched her face gently. Eira, I do not care about any of that. I just care about you. She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I care about you too, so much it scares me. Then marry me, for real this time. Yes, she threw her arms around his neck. Yes, you foolish man, yes. They kissed there by the fire with Gran watching over them and smiling. When they broke apart, Eira was crying and laughing at the same time. What do we tell my parents? She asked. The truth, Gran said firmly. All of it. They deserve to know, but wait until tomorrow. Let them have tonight thinking everything is settled. Tomorrow we will tell them and deal with whatever comes. That night, Damien and Eira lay in her narrow bed, this time with no awkwardness between them. She curled against his side with her head on his chest. He stroked her hair and felt more content than he had in years. Are you really sure about this? Eira asked softly. You could still leave. Take your money and go. No one would blame you. I am not leaving. You will have to settle here, my family's land, this farm, no more drifting from place to place. Good, I am tired of drifting. You will have to deal with my mother being suspicious of you forever. I can handle your mother. And my grandmother will ask inappropriate questions about our marriage bed. Damien laughed quietly. I look forward to it. Eira lifted her head to look at him. I love you, Damien Everett. I love you too, Eira Wulfstone. He kissed her forehead. Soon to be Eira Everett if you want. I like the sound of that. They fell asleep tangled together, and this time Damien slept soundly. The next morning they came downstairs to find Mara, Grom, and Gran already in the kitchen. The rest of the family had not yet woken. Mara was rolling out dough for bread. She looked up when they entered. Good morning. Did you sleep well? Mother, Eira said. Father, we need to talk to you. Something in her voice made Mara set down her rolling pin. Grom put down his tea mug. They both looked at Eira with sudden concern. "What is wrong?" Mara asked. Eira took Damien's hand. "Damien and I are not really married. Not yet. I paid him to pretend to be my husband so I could get out of the arrangement with Ulrich. It was all a lie." The silence that followed was deafening. Mara's face went through several expressions: shock, hurt, anger, and finally something that might have been understanding. Grom looked at Damien. "Is this true?" "Yes, sir." "Why would you do this?" Mara demanded. "Why would you lie to us?" "Because I was desperate," Eira said. "Because I did not want to marry someone I did not choose. Because I knew you would not listen if I just said no." Her voice shook, but she held her ground. "I am sorry I lied, but I am not sorry I made my own choice. And now you come to confess because you feel guilty." Mara's voice was sharp with betrayal. "No, we come to confess because we want to make it real." Eira squeezed Damien's hand. "I love him, he loves me. We want to actually get married with you here properly. We want your blessing." Mara looked at her daughter, then at Damien, then back to Eira. "You love him?" "Yes. And you?" Mara turned to Damien. "You love my daughter, or are you still being paid to say so?" "I love her," Damien said steadily. "I did not expect to. This was supposed to be a job, nothing more, but Eira is easy to love. She is strong and brave and kind. And yes, I want to marry her. For real." Grom leaned back in his chair. "Well, this is unexpected. You are not angry?" Eira asked. "I am angry that you lied," Mara said. "But I understand why you did. I was pushing too hard with Ulrich. I should have listened when you said you wanted to choose for yourself." She sighed. "Your father told me about his conversation with Damien yesterday, about working hard to win over a reluctant family. I thought he was talking about meeting us. I did not realize he was talking about you." "You knew?" Eira looked at her father. "I suspected," Grom said. "The way you looked at each other, the nervousness, it did not quite fit," he smiled. "But Gran saw it first, I am sure." "Of course I did," Gran said from her chair. "I am old, not blind." Mara rubbed her temples. "So you all knew except me?" "I only just figured it out," Grom said quickly. "Yesterday in the orchard, and even then I was not sure." "What about Ulrich?" Eira asked. "His family will be angry." "Ulrich is already married," Mara said. Everyone stared at her. "What?" Eira's voice was faint. "He married a girl from his village 3 weeks ago. I got a letter yesterday. That is why I have been in such a strange mood. I was trying to figure out how to tell you that the arrangement fell through." Mara shook her head. "And here you show up with a fake husband to get out of an arrangement that was already broken." Eira started laughing. She laughed so hard she had to sit down. "This whole thing was for nothing." "Not for nothing," Damien said softly. "We found each other." Eira looked up at him. Her eyes were bright with tears and laughter. "No, not for nothing." Mara came around the table and pulled Eira into a fierce hug. "You foolish girl, you should have just told me you did not want the match. I would have listened." "Would you have?" "Yes, eventually." Mara held her at arm's length. "I want you to be happy. That is all I have ever wanted. I thought Ulrich would make you happy. I was wrong." "And Damien?" Eira asked. "Do you approve?" Mara looked at him for a long moment. "He is human. He has no land or family. He is a drifter." "I know what he is, Mother." "But," Mara continued, "he is also a good worker. He is kind. He treats you with respect. And your father likes him, which counts for much." She sighed. "If he makes you happy, then yes, I approve." Eira burst into tears and hugged her mother again. Grom stood and offered Damien his hand. "Welcome to the family," he said. "For real this time." Damien shook his hand, feeling a strange lightness in his chest. "Thank you." "When do you want to do this properly?" Gran asked. "The family is already here. Might as well make it a celebration. Today." Eira looked at Damien. "Is that too soon?" "Today is perfect." The rest of the day was a whirlwind of activity. Word spread through the family that there would be a wedding that evening. Eira's sisters descended on her with dresses and flowers and advice. Damien was swept up by Grom and the other men, who took him to the village to speak with the elder who could perform the ceremony. The village elder was an old orc woman named Berta. She looked Damien up and down with shrewd eyes. "A human marrying into the Wulfstone family," she said. "That is unusual, I know, madam. Do you understand what you are agreeing to? Orc marriage traditions are binding. Once you speak the vows, you are bound to her and her to you for life. There is no breaking it, I understand. And you are certain? You have known this girl how long?" "Not long," Damien admitted, "but I am certain." Berta studied him, then she smiled. "Good, certainty is rare. Hold on to it." She turned to Grom. "I will come at sunset, have everything ready." They returned to the farm to find it transformed. Someone had strung garlands of autumn leaves across the doors. The long table was covered with food and drink. Lanterns hung from the trees in the orchard. The whole family was dressed in their finest clothes, bustling around with preparations. Torin grabbed Damien's arm. "You need to get ready. Kesta says you cannot see Eira before the ceremony. It is bad luck." "I thought that was a human tradition." "It is everyone's tradition. Come on." Damien was taken to a small room and given clean clothes. Someone had lent him a fine shirt and vest. They did not fit perfectly, but they were better than his worn work clothes. He washed and shaved and combed his hair back. When he looked at himself in the small mirror, he barely recognized the man looking back. He looked settled. He looked like he belonged. As sunset approached, the family gathered in the orchard. Someone had cleared a space under the largest apple tree. Lanterns hung from the branches, casting warm light. Chairs had been set up in rows. Berta stood at the front, waiting. Damien took his place beside her. His hands were shaking. Grom stood beside him, serving as witness. "Nervous?" Grom asked quietly, terrified. "Good. That means it matters." Music started, a simple melody on fiddle and drum. The family turned to look down the path through the orchard. Eira appeared, walking slowly toward them. She wore a dress the color of cream, simple but beautiful. Her dark hair was unbound and flowed down her back. Someone had woven flowers into it. Her tusks gleamed in the lantern light. She was not looking at anyone else, just at Damien, and her smile was radiant. Mara walked beside her, tears streaming down her green cheeks. When they reached the tree, Mara kissed Eira's forehead and placed her daughter's hand in Damien's. "Take care of her," Mara whispered. "I will," Damien promised. Berta began the ceremony. She spoke in the old orc tongue. Words Damien did not understand, but that sounded beautiful and ancient. Then she switched to the common language. "We gather here to witness the binding of Eira Wulfstone and Damien Everett. A binding of choice, of love, of commitment that cannot be broken." She looked at Damien. "Do you, Damien Everett, choose Eira Wulfstone as your wife? Do you promise to stand beside her in joy and in hardship, to honor her choices, to support her dreams, and to love her all the days of your life?" "I do," Damien said, his voice steady. Berta turned to Eira. "Do you, Eira Wulfstone, choose Damien Everett as your husband? Do you promise to stand beside him in joy and in hardship, to honor his choices, to support his dreams, and to love him all the days of your life?" "I do," Eira said, her eyes shining. "Then by the old ways and the new I bind you together. What is joined here cannot be sundered. You are husband and wife." Berta smiled. "You may kiss." Damien cupped Eira's face in his hands and kissed her softly. The family erupted in cheers and applause. When they broke apart, Eira was crying and laughing at the same time. "We did it," she whispered. "We did it," he agreed. The celebration that followed was joyous and loud. There was music and dancing, far too much food, and toasts that grew increasingly elaborate as the evening wore on. Damien found himself passed from person to person. hugged and congratulated by people who had been strangers a few days ago and were now family. Gran pulled him aside at one point. "You did good, boy. You made her happy. She makes me happy, too. I know I have eyes." She patted his cheek with her papery hand. "You will have a good life together. I feel it in my bones." Later, Damien found Mara sitting alone by the dessert table. He sat beside her. "Thank you," he said, "for accepting me, for trusting me with your daughter." Mara looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. "Do you know what it is like, watching your child grow up? One day she is a baby in your arms, the next she is a woman making her own choices. It is terrifying. I cannot imagine. I wanted to protect her from making mistakes, from choosing wrong, from getting hurt." Mara smiled sadly. "But I could not protect her from life. All I could do was love her and hope she found someone who would love her too." "I will love her," Damien said. "Every day, I promise." "I believe you." Mara squeezed his hand. "Welcome to the family, son." The word son hit Damien like a physical blow. He had not had a family in so long. Hearing that word, feeling the weight of acceptance behind it, nearly undid him. "Thank you," he managed. The party went on until well past midnight. When the younger children had been carried to bed and the adults were winding down, Eira took Damien's hand and led him away from the celebration. They walked through the orchard, their fingers entwined. "This has been the most insane week of my life," Eira said. "Just a week. Feels like longer." "Does it?" "Yes, in a good way." Damien stopped walking and turned to face her. "I feel like I have known you forever, like my life before this was just waiting for you to arrive." "That is very romantic." "Is it too much?" "No," she reached up and touched his face. "It is perfect." "You are perfect." "I am not perfect. I am a drifter with no prospects who fell in love with a woman who paid him to pretend to be her husband. And I am a stubborn orc woman who made a terrible plan that backfired spectacularly." Eira smiled. "We are perfect for each other." They kissed under the apple trees, with the sound of distant laughter and music drifting through the orchard. When they finally returned to the house, hand in hand, Gran was waiting on the porch. "About time," she said. "Everyone has been making jokes about how long you two were gone." "Gran." Eira's face flushed darker. "What? You are married now. You are allowed to sneak off together." Gran waved her hand. "Go on, get some rest. Tomorrow there is work to do." They climbed the stairs to Eira's room, their room now. The small space felt different knowing they would share it every night from now on. Damien closed the door behind them. "I cannot believe this is real," Eira said softly. "I keep thinking I am going to wake up and you will be gone." "I am not going anywhere." He pulled her close. "You are stuck with me now. Good." They lay down together in the narrow bed, wrapped in each other's arms. The sounds of the farm settling down for the night drifted through the window. Eira's breathing slowed and evened out. Damien held her and stared at the ceiling, marveling at how his life had changed in just 1 week. He had come here pretending to be something he was not, and in pretending he had found exactly what he had been searching for all along. A home, a family, a future, and Eira. Most importantly, Eira. He pressed a kiss to her hair and closed his eyes, content. The next morning, Damien woke to find Eira already up and dressed. She stood at the window, looking out over the orchard in the early light. "Good morning, husband," she said without turning around. "Good morning, wife." Damien sat up and rubbed his eyes. "You are up early. Could not sleep anymore, too much to think about." "Good thoughts or bad thoughts?" "Both." She turned to face him. "I need to tell you something I should have said before, but I was too afraid." Damien's chest tightened. "What is it? When I asked you to pretend to be my husband, I told you it was just to get out of the arranged marriage. That was true, but there was more." Eira sat on the edge of the bed. "I have been alone for a long time. All my friends from growing up have married and started families." My sisters have their own lives. I work hard and I am independent and I am proud of that, but I am also lonely. Eira, let me finish. When I saw you at the Morrison farm, working alone, eating alone, I recognized something in you, the same loneliness, the same searching. She took his hand. Part of me hired you because I needed a fake husband, but part of me hired you because I wanted to see if maybe, just maybe, I could find something real. Does that make sense? Yes, Damien said softly. That makes perfect sense. I did not expect to actually fall in love with you. That was not part of the plan, but I did. And now I am terrified because this is real and permanent, and what if I mess it up? What if I am not a good wife? What if Damien kissed her, cutting off the spiral of worry? When he pulled back, she was looking at him with wide eyes. You will not mess it up, he said firmly. And if we do mess things up, we will figure it out together. That is what being married means. Eira took a shaky breath. You are right. You are right. She stood and squared her shoulders. Come on. We should get breakfast before my family eats everything. They went downstairs together. The kitchen was already busy with activity. Mara was cooking, assisted by Kesta and Ryla. The children ran underfoot. Grom and Torin sat at the table, drinking tea and discussing the day's work. There you are, Mara said when she saw them. Sit, eat. You both look too thin. Over breakfast, Grom outlined the work that needed to be done. The harvest was in full swing. Apples needed to be picked and processed. Grain needed to be cut and stored. Fences needed mending before winter. There was always more work than hands to do it. Damien, I could use your help with the fencing today, Grom said. Torin will work with you. I can help too, Eira said. You can help your mother with the apple pressing. We need to make cider before the fruit turns. Eira looked disappointed but nodded. All right. Damien spent the day working alongside Torin and Grom, repairing the split-rail fences that marked the farm's boundaries. It was hard work in the autumn sun, but satisfying. Torin kept up a steady stream of chatter, asking questions about human customs and telling stories about the farm. Eira used to climb that tree when she was young, Torin said, pointing to a massive oak. She would go up there to read and think. Sometimes she would stay up there for hours and Mother would have to call her down for dinner. What did she raid? Damien asked. Everything. Adventure stories, history books, plant guides. She always wanted to know things. Torin hammered a nail into a fence post. I think that is why she did not want the arranged marriage. She wanted to choose her own adventure instead of having one picked for her. That makes sense. I am glad she chose you. You are much more interesting than Ulrich would have been. You know Ulrich. Met him once when I was small. He seemed boring, very serious and proper. Torin grinned. You are more fun, Damien smiled. I try. By late afternoon, they had repaired all the broken sections of fence. Damien's hands were blistered and his back ached, but he felt good, productive, like he was contributing something real. They returned to the farmhouse to find the women still working in the barn, pressing apples into cider. The sweet smell filled the air. Eira was operating the press, her sleeves rolled up and her face flushed with effort. She looked up when Damien entered and smiled. How was fencing? She asked. Good. How is cider making, Sticky? She wiped her hands on her apron. But we are almost done. Another hour maybe. Can I help? You can haul the full barrels to the cellar. They are too heavy for us. Damien spent the next hour moving heavy barrels of fresh cider down into the cool cellar beneath the barn. It was hard work, but he liked being near Eira, stealing glances at her as she worked. That evening, after another large family dinner, Damien and Eira walked out to the orchard again. It was becoming their habit, this evening walk among the apple trees. I like watching you work, Eira said. You put your whole self into it, no half measures. That is the only way I know how to work. My father noticed too. He told me at lunch that you are a natural farmer, that you have good instincts. Did he? Damien felt a flush of pride. Yes, he also said that if we want to stay here, there is room. We could build a house on the far side of the orchard, start our own section of the family farm. Damien stopped walking. Stay here, permanently. If you want to. I know it is not what you are used to, settling in one place, but I thought maybe, yes. Yes. Yes, I want to stay. I want to build a house with you. I want to work this land and raise a family and grow old here. Damien took her hands. I have been drifting my whole life. I am ready to stop. Eira's eyes shone. Really, really. She threw her arms around him, laughing. We are going to have a home, a real home. We are going to have a life, Damien corrected. Together. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other under the apple trees, planning their future. The next few days passed in a blur of work and family and growing comfort. Damien settled into the rhythms of the farm, learning the patterns of the season and the expectations of the family. He worked alongside Grom and Torin during the days, and spent the evenings with Eira, talking and planning and simply being together. Mara slowly warmed to him, asking his opinion on farm matters and including him in family decisions. The children stopped being shy around him and started climbing on him like he was a piece of furniture. Eira's sisters treated him like a brother, teasing him and confiding in him in equal measure. Gran watched it all with knowing eyes and said nothing, just smiled. One afternoon, Grom took Damien out to the far side of the orchard. This is where I thought you and Eira could build, he said, gesturing to a flat area with good sun and a view of the valley. Good drainage, protected from the north wind. Close enough to the main house for help, far enough for privacy. Damien looked at the space, imagining a small house, a garden, maybe a barn for a few animals. It is perfect. We can help you build. Torin is good with wood, I know stone. We can have something basic up before the first snow. Then you can improve it over time. I do not know how to thank you. You do not need to thank me. You are family now. This is what family does. Grom put a hand on Damien's shoulder. Besides, Eira deserves her own home, and I want my future grandchildren close by. Damien felt his face heat. We have not talked about children yet. You will, Grom smiled. Trust me, you will. That evening, Damien and Eira walked their orchard path again. He told her about the building site, about Grom's offer to help. We could start as soon as the harvest is done, Eira said excitedly. Get the basic structure up before winter. Live in the main house until spring, then move in when it is finished. You have thought about this. Of course I have. I have been planning our house in my head for days. She smiled at him. I want a big kitchen with windows facing east for morning light, and a bedroom upstairs where we can see the stars through the window, and a garden for vegetables and herbs. Anything else? A porch. A big one where we can sit in the evenings and watch the sunset. She leaned against him. Is that too much to ask? No. I will build you whatever you want. We will build it together. They talked late into the night about their future house, their future life. Eira sketched plans on scraps of paper, erasing and redrawing until she was satisfied. Damien watched her work, marveling at her attention to detail and her clear vision of what she wanted. What about you? She asked suddenly. What do you want in our house? Just you, Damien said. Everything else is extra. Eira set down her pencil and looked at him. How are you so perfect? I am not perfect. I am just honest. Then I am lucky you are honest. She moved into his arms. I love you, Damien. I love you too. They sat together in the quiet room, holding each other and dreaming of the life they would build. The harvest continued through the next week. The whole family worked from dawn to dusk, picking apples and pressing cider, cutting grain and storing it for winter, preparing the farm for the cold months ahead. Damien worked harder than he ever had, pushing himself to prove he belonged. One evening, after a particularly long day of work, Grom gathered the family in the main room. "I want to make an announcement," he said. "As you all know, Eira and Damien have decided to stay on the farm permanently. They will be building a house on the far orchard section. I want to officially grant them that land as a wedding gift. 20 acres, including the building site and the surrounding orchard. It is theirs to work and pass on to their children." Eira gasped. "Father, that is too much." "It is not too much. It is what you deserve." Grom looked around at his gathered family. "Does anyone object?" No one spoke. Mara was crying quietly, her hand over her mouth. Torin was grinning. Kesta and Ryla looked pleased. "Then it is settled." Grom raised his cup. "To Eira and Damien, may they build a good life on good land." "To Eira and Damien," the family chorused. Later, when they were alone, Eira cried against Damien's shoulder. "I cannot believe they gave us land. 20 acres, that is a fortune." "Your family loves you. They love us," Eira corrected. "They have accepted you completely. You are as much a part of this family as I am." Damien held her tighter, overwhelmed by the truth of it. He had gone from being completely alone to having more family than he knew what to do with. It was almost too much to process. "What are you thinking?" Eira asked. "That I am the luckiest man alive." "Not luck. You earned this. You worked hard. You were kind. You treated everyone with respect." She looked up at him. "You showed them who you are and they loved you for it. I just showed them the truth." "Exactly." They stood together in the quiet room, grateful and hopeful and in love. As the weeks passed, the harvest wound down and thoughts turned to preparation for winter. But there was one more piece of business to attend to. Grom announced that Ulrich Stonefist and his new wife would be visiting, to officially meet Eira's new husband and put any awkwardness to rest. "Do I have to be here for this?" Eira asked at breakfast the morning of the visit. "Yes," Mara said firmly. "It is the polite thing to do. Ulrich's family and ours have been friends for years. We need to maintain good relations. But it will be so awkward. Life is awkward sometimes." Mara set down a plate of eggs. "You will survive." Ulrich and his wife arrived at midday. Ulrich was a tall, broad-shouldered orc with deep green skin and impressive tusks. His wife, a pretty orc woman named Senna, had lighter green skin and a warm smile. They both looked happy and comfortable together. Damien stood beside Eira as introductions were made. He could feel the tension in her frame. "So you are the human who married Eira," Ulrich said, looking Damien up and down. "I have heard much about you. All good things, I hope." "Mostly." Ulrich grinned suddenly. "I am teasing. Grom speaks highly of you. Says you are a hard worker and good to his daughter. That is all I need to know. Thank you." Senna stepped forward and took Eira's hands. "I wanted to meet you. I have heard so many stories about you from Ulrich's family. They speak of you with such fondness." Eira looked surprised. "They do?" "Oh yes. They say you are fierce and independent and smart," Senna smiled. "I was nervous about meeting you. I thought you might be angry about the arranged match falling through because I married Ulrich first." "Angry? No, relieved," Eira laughed. "Very relieved, actually." "Good. Then we can be friends. I would like that." They all sat together in the main room, drinking tea and eating Mara's honey cakes. The conversation flowed easily. Ulrich told stories about his craftsman work, making furniture and tools. Senna talked about her family's sheep farm. Eira gradually relaxed, her hand finding Damien's under the table. "I have to admit," Ulrich said at one point, "I was not enthusiastic about the arranged match either. My parents pushed for it, but I wanted to choose my own wife. When I met Senna, I knew she was the one. I hope you understand." "I understand completely," Eira said. That is exactly how I felt. No offense to you, you seem like a good person, but I wanted to choose for myself. And you chose well. Ulrich nodded at Damien. He seems like a solid man. He is the best man, Eira said firmly. Damien felt his face heat. Ulrich laughed and clapped him on the shoulder. Treasure her. A woman who speaks of you like that is rare. I know, I do. When Ulrich and Senna left, Eira hugged Damien tight. That went so much better than I expected. See, you worried for nothing. I always worry, you know that. I do. And I love you anyway. She kissed him, quick and sweet. Come on, we have work to do. The next phase of their life together began with the building of their house. Grom and Torin helped, as did several of Eira's uncles and cousins. They worked through the late autumn days, raising the frame and walls of a snug two-room house with a loft. Damien learned more about building in those few weeks than he had in his entire life. Eira worked alongside them when she could, and spent the rest of her time planning the interior. She ordered glass windows from the village, a luxury that made Mara raise her eyebrows. But Eira was adamant. She wanted light and air in her home. You are like your grandmother, Mara said, watching Eira sketch furniture layouts. Stubborn and particular about what you want. Is that a bad thing? No, it is a very good thing. It means you will build a strong home and a strong life. Mara kissed her daughter's forehead. I am proud of you. By the time the first snow fell, the house had walls and a roof. It was not finished inside, but it was weatherproof. Damien and Eira stood inside the empty space, their breath misting in the cold air. We did it, Eira said. We actually did it. We did. Damien put his arm around her. By spring, it will be ready to move into. I can hardly wait. They spent the winter months working on the interior when weather allowed, and helping with general farm work when it did not. Damien learned the patterns of winter on a farm. The daily care of animals, the repair of tools and equipment, the planning for spring planting. It was hard work but satisfying. He also learned the patterns of being married, the comfortable silences and the deep conversations, the small disagreements and the quick reconciliations, the way Eira liked her tea, the way she curled against him in sleep. The 1,000 tiny details that made up a shared life. One evening in deep winter, they sat by the fire in the main house with Grom and Mara. The rest of the family had gone to bed. Snow fell heavily outside, muffling all sound. Damien, Grom said, I have been thinking. Come spring, I want to officially make you a partner in the farm, not just a worker, an equal partner with rights to the land and the profits. Damien nearly dropped his tea mug. What? You have earned it. You work as hard as any of us. You care for this place like it is your own. And with you and Eira starting your own household, you will need steady income beyond what the 20 acres can provide in the first few years. I do not know what to say. Say yes, Mara said gently. You are family, Damien. Let us treat you like family. Yes, Damien said, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, thank you. Eira took his hand and squeezed. Her eyes were bright with tears. See, I told you they loved you. We do, Grom confirmed. Very much. That night, lying in their narrow bed, Eira whispered in the darkness, Are you happy? More than I ever thought possible. Me too. She kissed him softly. Thank you for taking a chance on a desperate orc woman with a crazy plan. Thank you for choosing me. I will always choose you. They fell asleep wrapped together, snow falling outside, safe and warm and loved. Spring came slowly, then all at once. The snow melted and the first green shoots appeared. The farm exploded into activity. Planting season was the busiest time of year, and everyone worked dawn to dusk getting seeds in the ground. Damien and Eira moved into their house on the first truly warm day of spring. It was still sparsely furnished, but it was theirs. They had a bed Ulrich had made as a wedding gift, a table and chairs Torin had helped Damien build, and Eira's beloved east-facing kitchen windows. The first night in their own home, they lay in their bed and listened to the sounds of the orchard around them. Spring peepers sang in the distance. Wind rustled through the awakening trees. "This is perfect," Eira said. "Everything I dreamed of." "Just the beginning," Damien said. "We have a whole life ahead of us. What do you think that life will look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I think we will have expanded the orchard, built a better barn, maybe have a few children running around." Eira was quiet for a moment. "Would you want children? Really?" "With you? Yes, as many as you want. I think I would like a big family, brothers and sisters for our children like I had growing up." "Then that is what we will have." Eira turned in his arms to face him. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "Why does it scare you?" "Because I am so happy, and I worry something will come and take it away." "Nothing is going to take me away from you." Damien kissed her forehead. "I am here, forever, I promise." "Forever is a long time, not long enough." They made love in their own bed in their own house for the first time, gentle and sweet and full of love. Afterward, they lay tangled together, content. "Damien," Eira whispered, "thank you for everything. For being patient with me, for loving me, for building this life with me." "You do not need to thank me. This is what I want. You are what I want, still. Thank you." He held her until she fell asleep, then lay awake a while longer, marveling at the path his life had taken. From a lonely drifter to a man with a wife and a home and a family. From having nothing to having everything. All because an orc woman had paid him to pretend to be her husband. And her family had liked him more than her plan. The spring and summer passed in a blur of growth. Damien and Eira tended their 20 acres with care, learning what the land needed and could produce. Their apple trees flourished. They planted a large garden that produced more vegetables than they could eat. They kept chickens for eggs and a goat for milk. Eira continued to sell produce at markets, now with Damien's help. They became a familiar sight in the local villages, the orc woman and her human husband, always together, always smiling. People grew used to seeing them. The stares and whispers faded. They were just Eira and Damien, good farmers with quality produce. By late summer, Eira realized she was pregnant. She told Damien one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, exactly as she had dreamed. "I think I am with child," she said quietly. Damien turned to look at her. "You think? I am almost certain. The signs are all there." He took her hand, his heart racing. "How do you feel about that? Terrified, excited, happy?" She smiled at him. "How do you feel? The same, all of those things." He pulled her close. "We are going to be parents." "We are going to be parents," she echoed, wonder in her voice. They told the family the next day. Mara cried and hugged Eira so tight Damien worried she would break something. Grom clapped Damien on the back so hard he nearly fell over. Gran smiled and said she knew it would happen soon. Torin made a face and said babies were loud and sticky. The preparations began immediately. Mara insisted on making baby clothes. Kesta offered advice on everything from birth to sleepless nights. Ryla, whose own baby was now a year old, promised to help however she could. Damien felt overwhelmed by the attention and support. His child would grow up surrounded by family, something he had never had. The thought made his chest ache with gratitude. As autumn approached again, Damien found himself thinking about the previous year, how he had met Eira over a turnip wagon, how nervous he had been meeting her family, how uncertain the future had seemed. Now, 1 year later, everything had changed. He had a wife he adored, a home they had built together, a family that had accepted him completely, and soon a child. One evening, as they lay in bed with Eira's growing belly between them, she said, "Do you ever regret it? Saying yes that day, giving up your drifting life?" Never, not once. Do you regret hiring me? No, it was the best decision I ever made, even if it did not go the way I planned. It went better than you planned. Much better. She placed his hand on her belly. Feel that, the baby is moving. Damien felt the flutter of movement under his palm, his child, their child, alive and growing. Amazing, he whispered. We are going to be good parents, Eira said with certainty. I know we are. How do you know? Because we love each other, and we will love this baby. Everything else we can figure out as we go. That is a good philosophy. I thought so. They fell asleep with his hand still on her belly, feeling their child move in the darkness. Winter came and brought with it the quiet rhythms of the cold season. Damien kept the house warm and helped with the main farm work. Eira, growing larger with each passing week, spent more time inside, sewing and preparing for the baby's arrival. In late winter, with snow deep on the ground, Eira went into labor. Mara and Gran attended her while Damien paced downstairs with Grom and tried not to lose his mind with worry. She will be fine, Grom said for the 10th time. Eira is strong, and Mara has delivered dozens of babies. That does not make me less worried. No, it does not. Grom handed him a cup of something strong. Drink. It will help. The labor lasted through the night and into the next day. Damien wore a path in the floor with his pacing. Every cry from upstairs made his heart stop. Finally, as afternoon light slanted through the windows, he heard a new sound. A baby's cry, thin and outraged. Mara appeared at the top of the stairs, her face exhausted but smiling. You have a son. Come meet him. Damien took the stairs 2 at a time. Eira lay in their bed, pale and exhausted, with a tiny bundle in her arms. She looked up as he entered, and her smile was radiant. Come see our boy, she said softly. Damien knelt beside the bed. The baby was tiny and wrinkled, with a dusting of dark hair and skin that was a lighter green than Eira's but definitely not human. His eyes were closed and his little fists waved in the air. He is perfect, Damien whispered. He is ours, Eira said. What should we name him? They had discussed names for weeks, but now, looking at his son's face, Damien knew. Gareth, after my father. Gareth, Eira repeated, testing the name. Gareth Everett, I like it. Gareth Wulfstone Everett, Mara corrected from the doorway. He should carry both family names. Gareth Wulfstone Everett, Eira agreed. She looked at Damien. Is that all right? It is perfect. He held his son for the first time, marveling at the weight of him, the reality of him. This tiny person was his and Eira's, a child born from a fake arrangement that became real love. The family gathered to meet the baby. Everyone wanted to hold him and exclaim over his tiny features. Torrin, now 18 and much more mature than the previous year, looked at his nephew with wonder. He is so small, Torrin said. Was I ever that small? Smaller, Mara said. All babies start small, they grow. Gran held Gareth with practiced ease. He has your eyes, Damien, and Eira's determination. You can see it in the set of his jaw, even this young. How can you tell? Damien asked. I am old, I know things. Gran kissed the baby's forehead. He will be a good boy, strong and kind like his father, fierce and smart like his mother. As the weeks passed, Damien and Eira learned the rhythms of parenthood, the sleepless nights and the endless feedings, the small milestones and the daily discoveries. Gareth grew and thrived, a healthy, happy baby who smiled easily and rarely cried. Spring came again, bringing with it new life and new work. Damien carried Gareth in a sling on his back as he worked the orchard, and Eira laughed at the sight of them together. You look very domestic, she teased. I am domestic, completely domesticated. Your plan worked too well. My plan was perfect, actually. Look at everything it gave us. Damien looked around at their home, their land, their family. Eira standing in the doorway with the sun behind her, Gareth sleeping against his back. The orchard in full bloom, the future stretching out before them full of promise. "You are right," he said. "Your plan was perfect." Eira came to him and wrapped her arms around both of them. "I love you, Damien Everett. I love you too, Eira Wulfstone Everett." They stood together in the spring sunshine, a family built from an unlikely beginning. An orc woman who paid a human drifter to pretend to be her husband. A family that liked him more than her plan. And a love that grew from pretense into something more real than either of them could have imagined. It was not the life Damien had expected when he took that coin purse over the turnip wagon, but it was the life he had always needed. And he would spend every day grateful that Eira had been brave enough to ask, and he had been desperate enough to say yes. Because sometimes the best things in life come from the most unlikely places. Sometimes a fake arrangement becomes the truest thing you will ever know. And sometimes the family that likes you more than the plan is exactly the family you were always meant to find.